wanted to write from like the moment I couldn't even spell.
But I do agree. I got a lot to learn when it comes to acting. I still got to practice
on the radio promoting the show and had invited people.
Better than the first. The Adam Talks Podcast, Season 2.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Adam Talks Podcast. It's so good to have you back here today. I am very happy about that, guys. And before we get started on anything else in the episode, can I ask you to do one thing? Just one real quick thing, takes a couple seconds out of your day. Could you hit that subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube? And if you're listening to us on one of the other streaming platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Apple Podcasts, could you hit that follow button? It means so much, and it helps out so much to see who all is following, who all is watching, and not only watching, but sticking with us. Thank you so much for being here, guys. It's going to be a great episode. Today, we are talking to Cleric Baldwin, the voice of the SCW, South Central Wrestling in Mountain Pine, Brothers of the Four Pillars Wrestling, and Diamond State Wrestling. It's an awesome conversation. We talk to him about all kinds of things, not just wrestling even. We talk about DC Comics, Batman, we talk about Doctor Who, and just a bunch of stuff. It's really cool, guys. So I'm not going to hold you up any further. This is my conversation with Cleric Baldwin.
Right now we have an awesome guest on. It is really cool to have him, the voice of South Central Wrestling in Mountain Pine, the voice of Brothers of the Four Pillars Wrestling and Diamond State Wrestling, Cleric Baldwin. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty great. You know, good to be here and, just have a little chat, if you will.
A little chat. Sounds great, man. Heck yeah. What have you been up to here lately, man?
Well, you mentioned Brothers of Four Pillar, Diamond State, and South Central. Last year, I actually did my last shows for Brothers of Four Pillar and for Diamond State. Great promotions, by the way, but it just the travel and the time and stuff. But I'd stuck with South Central Wrestling, and then I went ahead and decided to spend more time with the family and whatnot. So I have bowed out of South Central Wrestling, and I had my last show there at the end of February with the Global Cup. I'm looking forward to seeing that on Rewind. But yeah, other than that, a lot of work. We're actually in my office at I'm in my office. You're at home, but
I'm over here.
I'm in my office here at my shoot job, if you will, because everybody in the wrestling community, unless they're doing that full time, everybody's still got some kind of shoot job, and that's right. What this is. But I'm the education coordinator, and I'm a qualified behavioral health provider at Adult and Teen Challenge Arkansas, which is a faith-based recovery program here in Hot Springs Village that I actually went to when I was 28 years old. I came here, checked in as a client, and went through the program to deal with my own opiate addiction that I had at the time that had ravaged my life. But now, I've been working here almost 8 years. Yeah, almost 8 years, and I love it.
Wow, man. See, I didn't know anything about that. That's an awesome story, I'm sure, to hear you coming back from it and then working in the system to help other people, That's probably a really awesome story. Before, if you're willing to get into that here after a little bit, before we get into anything like that, how did you get into wrestling, man? You were the commentary for those three promotions, very prominent figure as a commentator. How did you get into wrestling, man?
Oh, man. It all stems back to probably 1996 and the formation of the NWO. I was 10 years old when the NWO got together. We didn't really watch wrestling a lot in my house. I had an uncle who was really into wrestling already, but wrestling kind of started to pick up steam and popularity, and at that time. And so my brother and I started watching Monday Nitro on TNT, and I fell in love with it. It was awesome because you've got I mean, golly, it's basically superheroes every Monday night. You had your good guys, you had your bad guys, and you had this war of good versus evil. And good didn't always win until eventually they finally got their comeuppance and just, would tear the bad guys apart. And so I fell in love with it at that point. And I can remember watching it, Monday nights with my brother, and then they started Thursday Night Thunder. We started watching that. I can remember Sting getting, not talking for a year and a half, and then he gets the challenge for the belt at Starrcade and all the garbage that happened with that, and it just all that stuff. Diamond Dallas Page was my hero as a kid. I love that guy.
Same.
And
Same.
actually, before we got on here, I was watching a DDPY video about him rehabbing Butterbean, and so just did that now. But it was a lot of that, and Rey Mysterio. Here's this tiny little guy. He was Rey Mysterio Jr. then, but WCW had the cruiserweights and just all of that. So I fully fell in love with wrestling because of WCW. And me and my cousin Brian, we had the video games and we played those all the time. I remember I found all of these just regular belts. And I say found, I mean, I probably took my dad's belts and he wondered where they went. And we added cardboard and fabric and all this stuff to it and made our own sets of the WCW belt, all of them. Like all of the cruiserweight belt, the heavyweight belt, the United States tag team, all of them. We made all these belts. We cut them out of paper. We drew them. We did them all. And we would wrestle these pillows, for the belts. And just, we had entrance music and everything. It was, it was huge. And then WCW started to fall apart. And I think we had gotten rid of our satellite or something. Or I wasn't at my mom's when wrestling was coming on anymore. At dad's, we didn't have cable. At mom's, we had satellite, but I was only at mom's on the weekend, and so we couldn't watch it. And I just kind of fell out of wrestling at that point, and WCW folded and all this other stuff. But then in 2006, so I was out from I was in it hard and heavy from 96 to 2000, and then out of it from 2000 to 2006. And I was living with some friends, and a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, DX is back," and I was like, "Hey, I remember DX. I didn't watch WWF, but everybody's doing the crotch chop and all that. I remember that." So we started watching it. And it was when DX came back right after WrestleMania 22 when they came back, and so I just dove headfirst into wrestling. I had never really watched WWF, and then at that point it was already WWE, but I had never really watched them because I was hardcore WCW. I was loyal to them. I wasn't going to flip back and forth. And so I start watching that. I get on the internet. I start researching all this stuff so I can catch up on storylines. I'm watching, Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, and then they brought back ECW for a while. I'm watching that, and then I find TNA, and they've got the six-sided ring, and they've got Sting, and I'm just like, holy crap, Sting's here. This is great. Sting's over here, Ric Flair's over here, and I'm like, all right, everything's good. And so I mean, it was on from that point, just full force, and so that's when I got back into wrestling and never really left it after that, besides the, 15 months that I was checked into this program and didn't really watch it during then. But by the time I got out, Team Challenge in 2016, then I find out that NXT is no longer a, game show sort of thing. It's an actual show, and it's the best wrestling on TV. And so I fall headfirst into that. And then I find out about New Japan and Ring of Honor and all this other stuff. And my wrestling expanded a lot in 2017 and 18 and 19 and all that. And so, that's how that happened. But how I got into the business was there was an event in October of 2019. There was a company called CWA, Championship Wrestling of Arkansas, I think is what it stood for. And they were having an event at the convention center here in town. And they were having a rumble match to crown the first ever Arkansas heavyweight champion. and it was billed that Buff Bagwell was going to be there and Arn Anderson. And over here in the corner, you can't see it right now. You can see it's right behind the lamp. You see a weird gold frame, but there's a signed picture of Arn Anderson. I'm like, I'm going to go meet Arn Anderson because the Four Horsemen are bad to the bone. This red boot right here is signed by Ric Flair. And because Flair, top of the heat for me, that's my dude. I remember him elbow dropping his jacket when he was cussing out Eric Bischoff and just all this crazy. Ric Flair's the man. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go to that, and I'm going to meet Buff Bagwell and Arn Anderson, and this is just going to be awesome. And so when I went to it, Facebook, you take pictures, you check into an event, and all that stuff. And it was awesome. It was a great event. I've got a picture where I'm wearing Buff Bagwell's hat, and it's just ridiculous. And so I go to that, have a great time, and then I go home. And a couple days later, you know how Facebook will send you recommendations like ads. You get ads and stuff like that. And I saw an ad for South Central Wrestling. And it was at Mountain Pine. And it was just a couple of weeks away. And it was only $5 to get in. And it's WrestleFest. I'm like, that's 15 minutes from my house. There's no way I'm not going to that. And so I grab a buddy. And we go to WrestleFest 2019. It was in November 2019, and we're at a high school gym, and I just love the atmosphere. I'm in the stands, but I'm close to the ring at the same time. I'm heckling wrestlers, I'm cheering wrestlers on. There was one wrestler who was obviously a juggalo. He had a little ICP logo on his shorts, and I look at my buddy, I'm like, hey, watch this. And I'm like, whoop whoop, and the guy just loses his mind, and then the champion comes out, it was Kurt Castle at the time. He's cutting this promo, and I'm hollering back at him. I had a great time, like one of the best times I'd ever had at a wrestling show because it was intimate like that. You go to a WWE show and it's awesome, obviously. I mean, there's pyro, there's lights, there's smoke, there's cameras, there's all sorts of stuff. But you don't have that interaction. You go to a show like this, and you are front and center with these guys, and they're going to hear you. And then they're going to come talk to you later as well. And so I'm like, this is just awesome. I go to the show, I get home. I tell my wife, I was like, that was awesome. And then a couple days later, I'm just like, and sidebar, one of the guys who worked with it, Carl Mayhem, who, now is the head of the talent agency and all that stuff, Carl Mayhem, he and I used to work together in a shoot job at Oaklawn, a racetrack and casino here in town. He and I worked together and talked about wrestling with each other all the time. But then he left Oaklawn, I left Oaklawn, fell into my crazy life of addiction and all that stuff, and I didn't see him again. And then I go to the show and I see him. I'm like, holy crap, hey Carl, how's it going? So a couple days later, I'm at home, and it's like 11, 12 o'clock at night. My wife's asleep, and I'm just watching TV, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, I wonder, I've loved wrestling for forever, and I had made a Facebook post years ago, it said if I could pick my dream job, it would be wrestling commentary, because, I know I'm not athletic enough to be in the ring. I don't want to get thrown around and stuff broken on my face or my face itself broken. And so I was like, maybe, I can do some commentary or something like that. So I'd pull up the South Central Wrestling Facebook page and I message it, having no idea who's going to be on the other end of it or whatever. I'm like, hey, my name's Alex. I don't remember what all the message said, but, I'm interested, what do y'all do for commentary, whatever. And sent it. And I'm like, if I hear something, I hear something. If I don't, I don't. And then the next day I get a response from Antonio, El Rey. And he's like, yeah, come to our, we're on break for December and January. We come back in February, but come to my house in January when we'll be doing our training and, just come meet me and stuff. So I went to his house one Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, helped put the ring together in his backyard and talked to him, met some of the wrestlers and this stuff, and then just started going to the trainings on Saturdays and got into it that way. And then by February 2020, the first show in February, I made my commentary debut at the table right next to Carl. So we were co-workers once more, and we were still talking about wrestling, but we were doing it at a commentary table. And then you know what happened in March of 2020. That's when COVID hit. So we didn't have a show again until June. So my very first show's in February, and then we don't come back until June. And then I was at the table from June on until this past February. I missed a few shows here and there. I actually had a work trip one time. I had a family member die, things like that. But other than that, I've been steadfast at the table there at SCW and loved every minute of it. Loved the people that I've met there. Loved the matches that I called, and especially that Global Cup that we just had a couple of weeks ago. That was the most. That's up there as the most intense match that I've ever called because it was an 8-man scramble match. So sitting by yourself and calling the action on 8 men as they have a scramble match is intense. And it was 30 minutes long. It was a 30-minute scramble match. The only other one that comes up there would be the 60-minute Iron Man match between William Blackwell and Alexander Gold. They had a 60-minute Iron Man, and there was also a triple threat ladder match that was really intense as well, but it didn't go 30 minutes or an hour. But the Iron Man match I actually had to call twice because we had a problem with the audio, and so I had to go back and rewatch the match and call it again. That was intense. But yeah, those are some of the. So that's how I got in the business, and I ended up working these shows, and I meet these wrestlers, and then they're like, "Hey, come do," because it was like William Blackwell and Kay Toomer were putting together the first Battle at the Catalina Wine Mixer in Little Rock for Brothers of Four Pillars, and they're like, "Hey, come do commentary on this show." I'm like, "All right, cool." So I go do that, and with that, I end up getting to call a match that Gangrel was in, which that was pretty cool. And so, I got to meet Gangrel and call a match of his. And then Alexander Gold started his promotion, Diamond State Wrestling, and did that in Springdale. So he's like, "Hey, come do commentary for this one." So I haul up to there, and I did the commentary on their shows for a while. And then there were some local guys that were able to take over, and they started doing it. And so, because that was a long drive, 4 hours from my house on a Sunday there and back, and do 3 hours of commentary. I'm just like, you know what? This is a really awesome opportunity, but I'm kind of a tired old man, and so, but it was great. I love the product they're putting out up there. They just had a show recently, and then Buddy Badcock and Chris Pierce and them started doing the Vino shows. They do these shows at Vino's in Little Rock, and so I went and did 2 of those shows, but I had to, I bowed out of that one. That was a little too intense. I made a rule that if my kids can't be at the show, I don't need to be at the show. And so, like, they're doing death matches and smashing beers in each other's faces, which was awesome. I'm like, yeah, I gotta back out of this one. I love you guys, but I can't be here. And they're doing great. They just had a show a couple weeks ago, and they got another one coming up in April. I think April 13th, and that'll be a good show. I know they got a really good team. Plus, the camera guy is really awesome. My cousin Brian. Yeah, he's the one I was talking about earlier when we were doing all the wrestling stuff together. He does all their AV, and but yeah, he's pretty cool.
Heck yeah, man. And you called not only a lot of, like, the wrestling matches, most of the wrestling matches for SCW between 2017 you said, and current all the way up to this last show. You've called most of those matches. You've called my first 3 matches for SCW as well. So that was pretty cool too, man. Mine and Jeremy Lewis's debut was against each other at October Fight Night 22. You called that one. Yep. You called my match against Mitch Black. and my match against Diesel Dog. So
Yep.
I could say from a first-hand standpoint, man, you're one of the best commentators in the game. I know you stepped away, but you're one of the best commentators in the game, man. Very clear, very concise. You knew exactly what you were saying, and you knew how to make the audience at home feel what the audience in the arena was feeling as far as the SCW goes. I've watched a little bit of Diamond State Wrestling. They have a quality product, like you were saying, man. You only added to it while you were there, you know. Did you take any influence from like maybe a Tony Schiavone or a Jim Ross or Jerry Lawler, Michael Cole, any of those guys?
Schiavone's definitely my dude. I mean, Schiavone and Mike Tenay and Bobby Heenan. That is
the WCW lineup, man.
That's my jam right there. And a little bit of Dusty Rhodes. Dusty was at the table a lot there too. But
yes, sir.
Schiavone, Tenay, and Heenan, because Heenan always brought the jokes. Heenan always had the jokes, and I try to slip humor in there. You know, I mean, I fully slipped in this past show. I slipped in a Bluey reference during a Tyler Knight match, which just an inside joke for all of us. But you know, I just Heenan brought the humor. Tenay brought the random facts. That guy was just an information machine. I love Mike Tenay. I wish he was still
the human encyclopedia.
Yeah, dude. I mean, he's had it all. And then obviously Tony Schiavone. I remember he's the voice of my childhood. People talk about JR being the voice of their childhood. I love JR. JR's awesome. He was the voice of wrestling for me from 2006 and on, but I never watched him in the 90s. And so Tony Schiavone was the voice of my childhood. He was the best. And so I remember finding out that he started a podcast. Him and Cotran Thompson started a podcast in, I think, 2018 or something like that. And so I started listening to that, and I listened to a bunch of his podcasts, and it was just awesome hearing all those stories from the NWA and WCW and his tiny little smidgen of time there in TNA. I think he did like 2 episodes, but all of that was just Schiavone all the way. You know, he's the dude, and so yeah, I got a lot of influence from him. But those 3 all together, especially being a one-man booth. You know, one-man table, it's because when I started, it was me and Carl, so it was 2 of us, so I had somebody to play off of. You know, he's the heel, I'm the face, and so we've got that little dynamic, and then we go back and forth, but after a while, Carl wanted to be, you know, out there in the ring doing the talent agency stuff, and so then they brought in Aaron, and I was with Aaron for a little bit, but he had some stuff he had to go do, so he was gone, and then for most of the time, it was me. I think I had Rich at the table with me once, and that was a good month, you know, but most of the time there, the past several years at SCW, it was just me. And so making these calls, I had to pull from everything and become, you know, kind of become myself, because I can't really banter back and forth with myself. And so I had to just fire off a joke here, a fact here, but also call all the wrestling moves. Because when there's multiple people, one guy can be the play-by-play, and one guy can be color. Color is, you know, just the random things, the jokes, the remarks, whatever. And the play-by-play guy's calling the moves, you know, what's going in the ring. And so, but when you're just one guy being color and play-by-play, you're just like, here we go, Jack. You know, so do it all. And so looking at a 3-man booth and trying to find a way to beat all of that at once was intense, and I loved it because it was a
probably
challenge.
Really challenging. I was about to say it's challenging. It sounds like, man. WCW is my jam. When I was 1997 is whenever I got into wrestling. So I got to live through the Hogan and Sting stuff. I got to live through the DDP and Macho Man stuff, the Jericho Malenko stuff. You know, seeing Ray versus Eddie at Halloween Havoc 97. You know what I'm saying? I mean, all the great stuff that WCW had, man.
That's my favorite
Do what?
cruiserweight match of all time. That's my favorite cruiserweight
Oh,
match
yeah?
of all time. Yep. Eddie versus Ray. I watch that at least every 6 months.
Holy cow. It was great. He tried the
Yeah.
baseball slide, Ray
Oh.
raised up, and he hit himself on the post, man, from that baseball slide.
Yep.
It was so clean. They knew how to do it, man.
Mhm.
It was
Oh yeah,
great.
and the storyline. I remember the entire storyline leading up to that. Eddie trying to take Ray's mask and all of that. In one episode of Nitro, he slips out and yanks the mask off, and Ray's got a cover, and they get him out, and he's trying to tear the mask the entire time during that match because it was built into his entire outfit. Oh,
Yeah.
that match is
He'd tear the eye hole out. He opened the eye hole up and stuff. It was great, man.
Yep.
That was a great match. That was a
Oh
really
yeah.
great match. For me, the feud that got me into wrestling was Macho Man and DDP because, like you, DDP is my all-time favorite wrestler. I mean, there's a lot of wrestlers I like, but DDP is always the top of my list. Underneath him is The Rock because of just how charismatic he was. But DDP was a guy that felt very relatable, you know, a guy that felt very down to earth, someone that you could feel like you could see walking down the street while you're in town or something like that.
Yep.
He wore blue jeans, he had taped up ribs and wore cut off t-shirts and stuff. I could see that guy, you know, so it drew me in. And then the war they were waging with, the Team WCW, Team NWO, man. The freaking gang warfare they had in WCW, it was just great, you know. I think a little bit later when they brought Wolfpack in, it was kind of, you know, I wasn't a fan of the Wolfpack, honestly. Wasn't a big fan of Wolfpack.
I liked
Wasn't
it for
a
a
big fan
little
of
bit.
LWO. But,
I love the red
it
and
is
black
what
thing.
it is. Oh yeah. It was great.
Yeah.
And I remember when the time that you were talking about where he couldn't talk or he wouldn't talk for a long time. And then he got that chance at Hulk Hogan. And I had waited and wanted to see that match. And finally, my mom bought it on pay-per-view for us. So we got to watch Hogan versus Sting at Starrcade 97. And then the ending was really freaking weird, man. It was just a weird ending. I don't know what happened with it, but it was great, man. I absolutely love WCW. But a lot of people give it a lot of flack because of the later years, I would say. The later years, it got a lot of flack for.
Yeah,
But
2000 and 2001.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was, Anyway, TNA and 2004 is whenever I got back into it. I did fall out for a while because skateboarding was the thing when I was 13. So, so Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 is out, and I was playing video games, just playing that. And then me and my cousins had skateboards, and we had built makeshift ramps that were just like, duh, and then duh. And we would get on it and act like it was like a half pipe or something, but it was just 3 pieces of wood essentially with stacked up on stuff. We did that, and then I want to say 2004, late 2004, it was Evolution. It was Batista and Triple H's feud happening. It was after Orton had already been betrayed, and he was going into the Legend Killer stuff, and John Cena was still doing the rapping stuff, but he was on his way to fighting JBL. That's whenever I got back into it. You know, it was a great time at that period. Yeah, WrestleMania 21, my favorite WrestleMania of all time. But yeah, so what made you? So wanting to step away to spend time with family is what made you step away from the wrestling world altogether, correct?
Yes. Oh yeah, just doing that, and you know, by the time I get to Saturday, I want to unplug from pretty much everything, and oh man, and just my work has gotten so intense. Really, it takes a lot, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love what I do here. And so I want to make sure that I'm giving that my all, and I don't want the SCW product to suffer because I show up to work exhausted. You know, and so I I decided it was time to just fully step away and give Antonio time to find a new commentator and be able to keep his show going. I want it to be the best product because SCW, I've seen it grow and become so awesome. I look at in my head at the different. If you go back and watch Rewind over the past 4 years and you see the evolution of just the set that we have, I mean, it's
Yeah.
top notch right now. They just got a new curtain that's got the SCW logo on it. And so when they walk out, the logo splits and there's the wrestler, and the lights and everything. So he's got a lot of great good stuff going on. And I'm tired. And I want to make sure that they've got the best thing going for them. And I was no longer that because I want to give, and I don't want to take away from my family because Saturdays and Sundays are pretty much the only time I really get to spend concentrated time with them. And one of those Saturdays every month, I'm dipping out to go hang out with my wrestling buddies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's completely understandable reason, man. I actually threw my name in that hat to be the commentator, and he messaged me back about it. So right now I'm trying to figure out if that's something viable for me that I can actually do. I'm talking to my fiance about it because I don't want to lose out on any time with my kids and stuff. I only get them one weekend out of each month. So,
yeah,
I want to be able to spend that time with them, and if it lines up correctly and stuff, maybe I could do it. But if not, I mean, I'll have to let him know. But I feel like I could do a decent job as a commentator. I've been told by a lot of different people that I should try for it, so I thought, why not try,
yeah, you got the
it's
voice
really
for it.
respectable. Oh, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. It's a respectable reason, big time respectable reason for you to step away, man. Getting off the topic of wrestling per se, we've just had all kinds of announcements in the world of comic books, specifically DC. Superman Legacy is no longer Superman Legacy. It's just Superman.
Yeah.
James Gunn came out and made that announcement. They showed the big Superman S, the new shield that's going to be on David Cornsweat suit and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on James Gunn coming into the DC universe and making it his own?
Oh, I'm all for it. I love what he did with with Guardians of the Galaxy. Obviously, he took a group of superheroes that nobody really knew unless they actually read the comics, which honestly I don't. I've never been a huge comic book guy. I love comic book movies. I mean, obviously I got Batman all over the place up here, but I never really read much of comic books. I love regular novels. Like I will read, like I got shelves full of actual just novels back here. But I love the movies, and so I look forward to new ideas and new things like that. And Gunn did great with Guardians of the Galaxy, and he took the Suicide Squad and made it his own, and it was great. And I wasn't I'm trying to think if there's James Gunn stuff that I'm not really a fan. I never saw Slither or whatever, but he did do a movie called Super. I don't know if you ever saw that one. It had
No, I haven't.
Rainn Wilson in it. Yeah, Rainn Wilson is this line cook in this little restaurant, and he's married to Liv Tyler, who is a recovering addict, and she ends up running off and getting back into drugs and Kevin Bacon is a drug dealer, and so Rainn Wilson literally becomes a superhero named the Crimson Bolt, so he can go beat up the drug dealers and get his wife back. And Ellen Page is in it, and she's Bolty, his little sidekick, and he ends up murdering Kevin Bacon in this movie. I mean, just like there's this brutal. It's a brutal movie. I mean, gunshots and pipe wrenches to the head. He takes Michael Rooker and breaks his brain out on the hearth of a fireplace, and that movie is great. If you never you see that movie, it's hilarious and just awesome. And plus Rainn Wilson, who doesn't like Dwight Schrute? I mean, a lot of people don't like Dwight Schrute, like the actual, you know what I mean. But so that movie is great. So I'm looking forward to see what he can do with Superman because I loved Christopher Reeve. I love what they did with those movies. Those were great. I mean, Superman 4 is very campy and weird. Nuclear man with the long fingernails, whatever. But I love Superman 3 with Richard Pryor. People give that movie crap because it was real comedic, but Richard Pryor is hilarious, or was hilarious. And so Superman 3 is up there. I think I watched that like 2 months ago. I was like, I really want to watch this. And I did, and it was great. Still. I love Superman Returns. People gave Superman Returns a lot of crap, but I thought it was great. Brandon Routh was an awesome stand-in for Christopher Reeve, because he was obviously playing Christopher Reeve Superman. And he did
I thought the same
great.
thing.
And Kevin Spacey did amazing, even if Kevin Spacey turned out to be a giant weirdo. You know, he was a great Lex Luthor, who was a villain, so apparently he just took that to real life. And so Superman Returns was great. And then Zack Snyder comes in, and Man of Steel was awesome. I loved it. And I generally was not a huge fan of Zack Snyder up until that point. I mean, I enjoyed 300, you know. I didn't like Watchmen. Sucker Punch was kind of weird. But, you know, Zack Snyder's styling is, you know, dark and brooding and all this stuff. But Man of Steel was awesome. You know, people didn't like that Superman broke Zod's deck. I thought it was great. You know, and Man of Steel was great. Batman v Superman was awesome because it's Batman. And I'm just like, yes, give me Batman in a movie, and I'm probably going to be pretty happy. Obviously, you know, Batman's great. And so putting those together was great. Justice League was great. I like the Whedon cut, and I like the Snyder cut. They've both got things that really go for them. Snyder cut's longer, it has a lot more story, and that's really great. Whedon cut, you know, has funny jokes. The whole Pet Cemetery reference and Aquaman sitting on Wonder Woman's lasso of truth. I thought that was hilarious because I'm a huge Jason Momoa fan. You know, that goes all the way back to Stargate Atlantis. But James Gunn coming in and taking over the DCU, I'm super. I remember the announcement they made a year or two ago, whatever, when he talked about gods and monsters and all that stuff. And I like that the movie is changing from Superman Legacy to just Superman, because Superman Legacy makes you think that it's like Superman Legacy would be a better title for a movie about Superman's children, if we're just being honest, because that would be Superman's legacy, you know, or an old Superman. If we were making another, you know, Henry Cavill Superman movie, or if we were bringing back Brandon Routh as Superman, maybe then you call it Superman Legacy because he's well into being Superman. Hell, if you were going to bring back, you know, Tom Welling out of Smallville, which, by the way, best Clark Kent. Sorry.
I agree 100 on that, man.
If you were going to bring him in, then yeah, call it Superman Legacy. But just calling this one Superman, superb. And I look forward to what he's going to do, especially since Matt Reeves keeps getting to make the Batman, and we get to have that in kind of an Elseworlds sort of thing, and we get to also have a Batman Brave and the Bold. Yeah, bring it on. Give me more DC superhero movies, because DC is top of the heap for me. I enjoy the Marvel movies, don't get me wrong. Like I said, Guardians of the Galaxy, that was great. Avengers Endgame, you know, when they, you know, on your left, they all come out of those portals and Cap says, you know, Avengers, assemble. Let's do this, you know, murder all of the bad guys. It was great. Yeah. I loved it. But Batman is Batman. Batman's my hero. That's why I've got 20 Batman action figures in this room right here, and he's been my superhero since I was a kid. I wore out that Michael Keaton VHS tape, that first one.
Like, is Keaton your Batman?
Oh, 100%. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 Keatons in here right now. And when they announced that he was going to be in The Flash, I was like, yes, this is now going to be the best movie ever, because they brought back Michael Keaton. And people complained about the Flash. I get it. Whatever. Ezra Miller turned out to be a weirdo. But the Flash was awesome. It was so
pretty
great.
cool, man.
That
it was
movie
pretty cool.
Man, I went and saw it at the IMAX. And
oh, wow.
Yeah.
My favorite Batman, dude, for the longest time, it was Bale, because it was grounded in reality. I like Bale's Batman. But the moment I saw that they were casting Ben Affleck as Batman, I was like, this guy could play Bruce Wayne. This guy's big enough and can play a dark enough character, because I've watched Daredevil, and I loved Daredevil whenever it came out years ago.
Yep.
I've seen him play these characters, and I know he could do it, you know? And even if you look at another movie like The Town that he was in the movie with, The Town with Jeremy Renner. That movie, he played an extremely dark kind of, because he had to be guy, I guess. I don't know how you would describe that character, but he brought that kind of energy as well as the Daredevil energy to this part, and it worked so well. He brought this broken man, like, by this city, this city that's ran him down, full of criminals and stuff. He brought this whole thing to this character, and I was like, that's Batman. That's the Batman we've been waiting for, man. So, as I was saying, Ben Affleck came on the scene, and I saw him and the way he looked in that first shot, him standing beside the Batmobile in the first picture Zack Snyder put up for him. It was a black and white. Man, it was beautiful. I was like, that is beautiful. I was enamored because they brought the gray back for one. And that is cool. Gray costume, black emblem, black cowl. Yes, Batfleck. Dude, that dude, I don't know. I can't express how happy I was to see him in the role and stuff. And my friend Glenn, he didn't like the way that they made Batman kind of use guns and stuff, I guess, in it, or had guns on the front of his car. I don't know exactly what the critique was. I can't remember. It was a little while back when Batman v Superman came out, but he didn't like that. And my reasoning behind it is, you know, he lives in a world where Superman is, and the villains or the criminals don't fear Batman because he's just a guy. He's just a man in a suit that, you know, uses grapple hooks or whatever to get around, but he's just a dude. Why are they going to be afraid of him whenever there's this godlike being out there, you know, that can come down, can scoop you up and throw you through buildings and stuff? Why would they be scared of this guy in a bat costume? So he had to step his game up in a different way and change his game in a different way, and had to get a little bit rougher in order to accommodate for that, because before that, there wasn't anybody in that world like Superman that they knew about, you know, and he had to be like, no, you still have to fear me. There is still reason to be afraid of the Batman, you know, so he had to kind of step it up in a different way than I guess he was accustomed to, or a different way to his liking. That's where the branding came in. That's where all of the extreme behavior from Batman came in, you know. Alfred asked him at one point, he was like, so we're criminals or something like, so we're taking the law into our own hands or something like that. And he said, we've always been criminals, Alfred. You know, it's just, he had to change his mentality into a different way. Speaking of the Batman, though, Robert Pattinson did an amazing job as Batman. I had no idea what to expect out of this movie, but then I seen the little black, or the red and black tease that they did for it before the movie came out. It was just a couple seconds of, you see his cowl, you see him, and it was the slow dun, 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 dun. It was the song they made for him or whatever, and I was just so pumped up to see that. After that, I was like, this is different. This is way different. What was something that you found that you liked about that Batman?
Ooh, I remember when Robert Pattinson was cast as the Batman, and of course the internet goes into an uproar. The sparkly vampire be Batman, whatever. And I'm just like, do y'all not remember how much you complained when Ben Affleck was cast? Do y'all not remember how much you complained when Heath Ledger was cast as the Joker? And now you've got fanboys who say that, Heath Ledger is the greatest thing, since sliced bread. Jack Nicholson is still my Joker, but Heath Ledger did, oh my gosh, super amazing. And so when
Yeah.
they cast Robert Pattinson, I'm just like, I'm gonna give him a shot. Of course, it's Batman. They could put, if they put Danny DeVito in as Batman, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm not gonna get upset at first. I mean, Danny DeVito as Batman would probably be funny, especially older Danny DeVito, kooky and weird. Yes, that'd be great. But so I remember I was, and then they put out the first teaser, and it's just like, this looks amazing because it's dark, gritty. I mean, Batman is the Dark Knight. He does all of his stuff at night, and so it's obviously going to be dark. And then you've got this new take on the Riddler and all that, and so I was super excited the moment I see the first teaser. I'm like, yes, let's go watch it. I bought tickets for the IMAX and all that, and I go, and it was great because it was like a noir detective movie. He spends so much of that movie being the detective, because world's greatest detective, all that stuff. So he spends a lot of the movie doing that, and Pattinson did great. It was a different take on Bruce Wayne because usually when we see Bruce Wayne, he's this put together businessman, who's suave and debonair and catching all the chicks. This Batman, he's year two Batman, and he's just so deep in his revenge that he can't see anything else. He mentions he doesn't care about the Wayne name. He doesn't care. He just wants to put the hurt on the criminals. And by the end of the movie, he changes and he realizes he has to be something different. So I figure in the Batman 2, we will see a more refined Bruce Wayne stepping out of the shadows and being, probably being more businessman and stuff like that. But I loved how his suit looked tactical and practical. There's this website, there's this company called Bat in the Sun, and
Yes.
you ever heard of Bat in the Sun? They've made some
Yeah.
amazing videos called Superpower Beatdown, where they had like
Hmm.
the White Ranger versus Scorpion and things like that, and they love Batman, obviously Bat in the Sun, and I actually got banned from their page on Facebook because I pointed out how much they were complaining about Robert Pattinson being the Batman. They're like, he's too small, he's too this, he's too that, da da da. They were complaining about his boots. Like he's got $1 million um, contact lenses that can do this, but he's wearing, these $50 tactical boots. And I'm like, yeah, he's wearing tactical boots because that's what makes the most sense for him. I mean, they're probably slip resistant. They're probably this, that, and the other. Yeah, he's wearing boots. He
Yeah.
does not care. He is not. He is not flashy Batman. The only reason he has those contact lenses is because they're useful. His
Hmm.
bat emblem was a freaking knife. I've never seen that before. He gets to a situation. He's like, oh, let me pull this giant knife out and cut this open. I'll put it back. I've got a knife right here. Easy access. That was great. He had a little port in the leg of his suit so he could hit with some adrenaline and stuff. And so they were complaining and complaining and complaining. I commented something along the lines of, you sound like a sad ex-girlfriend who's complaining about your ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend. And I got banned from their page and can't comment anymore about their stuff. But it was just, it was pitiful. Because they had made their own little Batman fan film, and their Batman is huge and jacked like Ben Affleck, and they're like, "This is comic book representation of da da da." I'm like, It's a comic book, man. They they made it's a different version of Batman. It's okay. You complain about Adam West. I mean, I'm sure Batman wasn't super freaking jacked like he is in the comics now. Back in 1960, when they made the Adam West Batman, he was in a cloth suit and he had shark repellent. Like, piss off, you know. It was,
Yeah.
give the guy a chance, and it was awesome, you know, because he's not doing like heavy-handed fighting style. He's not. It's not like he's using strength and picking people up and doing things. No, he's just going in and just whipping the tar out of people because he's fast. And it was awesome. He was a very smart detective, and even his car. They did a novella um, that I listened to the audiobook of. It was called Before the Batman, and it talks about it. It goes from him being a child to him being a teenager and stuff like that. And the Batmobile that he's got in the book, he builds that himself when he's a teenager, and he tests it doing street races,
Wow.
and that's how he builds that Batmobile and things like that. And it's just cool stuff like that, and you get more backstory on the Riddler as well about him coming up in the mansion and the boys' home and whatever. And so
Yeah.
when I went and saw that movie, I watched it and I wanted to watch it again immediately, right when it was over. I
Yeah.
pre-ordered the Blu-ray. I got this real nice box set of it, and it came with stuff, and it was just awesome. And that doesn't take away from the fact that Michael Keaton is my Batman. He's still my favorite because he was my Batman from childhood. But Robert Pattinson is, to me, Batman right now. He's hands down. It was great. And I mean, Twilight was a hot load of garbage. It was inadvertently one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my life. I remember friends convinced me to go see this movie. I go see it, and I'm just laughing the whole way through because it was so funny. They literally cast that movie, and 6 months later, it's in the theater, and it was hilarious, so funny, and it made millions of dollars. So good for them. That's awesome. But Robert Pattinson is Batman. He is. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see who's going to play Brave and the Bold. That a load of people want Jensen Ackles to
Oh
be
man,
Batman.
yeah. I want Jensen Ackles or Alan Richson.
Alan Richson. I'd rather have him because if we're going to go for a big buff Batman, give me Reacher. Give me Aquaman from Smallville. Because that was great. And like, I never watched Supernatural. Mainly, and 100%, it's because I was a huge Smallville fan, and Jensen Ackles was in season 4 of Smallville, and I hated his character. And then the next season,
You
and
didn't like Coach Jason?
Oh God, he was the worst. Like everything he's in is just stupid. And then the next season, they pop up with Supernatural, and I'm like, I'm not going to watch that. I'm not going to watch a show with a person I can't stand. And so I didn't. And Supernatural ran for like 15 seasons, and they got a bunch of fangirls and stuff like that. I'm like, again, that's awesome. Good for you. But I don't want to watch it. Right. I'll give him a shot if he gets cast as Batman, obviously, because Batman, and I won't hold that against
anybody
him,
a shot.
I'll give anybody a shot. I mean, again, I said Danny DeVito, cool, right on. They'll come up with some storyline to make it make sense, and I'll be there for it. If you want Kermit the Frog to play Batman, I'll probably give it a shot because that'd be hilarious. Especially if they don't play it. Oh yeah, I'm in. But he's got to have a mustache and use a Ron Burgundy voice, and then total win.
Batman.
Yeah, not just like yes, you are, brother.
Yes, you are, brother. When did your love for Doctor Who come into play, man?
Ooh, Doctor Who. I got into Doctor Who in 2011, I believe, 2011 or 12. Whenever season 6 started, The Impossible Astronaut. My cousin Brian, again, he's a huge Doctor Who fan, and he was like, hey, come over to my house. It's the season premiere of Doctor Who. I want to see if you'll like this show. And it's the episode The Impossible Astronaut. So I'm impossibly lost as to what's going on, but I'm like, this is freaking great. And so I start watching that, and I'm like, this doctor guy's pretty freaking cool. So at that point, seasons 1 through 5, I think, were all Watch Instant on Netflix. And so back when they still called it Netflix Watch Instant, because I was also getting the DVDs still. Yes, kids, Netflix used to come in the mail. But so I started with Christopher Eccleston, the episode titled Rose, the very first episode when the show came back in 2005.
Oh my
And
God.
I started watching there, and I watched straight through and caught up, and then was watching on TV, and I fell in love with it, and it's one of those shows where you're following just a genuinely good character, and he's got his reasons for doing the things that he does, and he's super smart, and it was just great. And so I got some Doctor Who stuff right back here. Matt Smith was my favorite for a long time. He was the first one I watched, and I loved his portrayal of the Doctor. But then Peter Capaldi comes in, and he's this angry Scotsman, and Peter Capaldi just is the freaking best. He's my Doctor, and he's just awesome, And so then, because like his run started in 2014, and then I went into Teen Challenge and didn't get to watch until I got out, and then I get caught up and stuff like that. And then I didn't have BBC, I didn't have cable and stuff, so I didn't really get to see any of 13's run until very recently when because I got married, and then we moved, and then we got internet. Like internet just got to our house like 6 months ago, where we're living.
Man.
And so I went through and I caught up, and I watched all of Whitaker's run. And so I've seen all of New Who. I've seen all of it. And but Peter Capaldi is still at the top. Like right now, I'm in the middle of rewatching from Eccleston to present with my sons, 12 and 9. And we started with Eccleston, and we watched last night. We finished season 6. We watched The Wedding of River Song. We watched that episode last night, and so they're up to that with me. And I've skipped a few episodes in there with them because there are some genuinely spooky episodes in there, and I don't want them having nightmares. And but I skipped a few. But they're all caught up. My son, for his birthday, requested a long jacket like David Tennant and a sonic screwdriver. And so we got him those, and then my other son wanted a sonic screwdriver, and so we've all got sonic screwdrivers. There's a cup on the counter at my house that has 4 sonic screwdrivers in it. It's got 9 and 10s and 11s and 12s and Tom Baker's as well. Because yeah, two or so months ago, I found out that all of classic Who that they have is free to watch on Tubi. You just have to watch. Yeah, you just have to watch that. So it's got 1 through 7 is all on Tubi.
Dude, I gotta go check that out.
Yep. And so I had tried some of William Hartnell, and I'd watched his first couple of stories, but he's just not the Doctor as we perceive the Doctor now. And so that was hard to watch, and so I just I didn't. And then I watched some of Patrick Troughton. I watched one of his stories. It was Tomb of the Cybermen. It was all right, but again, still he's not very doctory. And then Third Doctor is just this kung fu velvet jacket wearing guy with gray hair. Like I don't know, man. John Pertwee is a whole different level. I was watching one of his episodes, and he's literally kung fu chopping these Vikings in a castle, and I'm like, I just don't know. I just don't know. Exactly. I'm just like, I don't understand. And Pertwee's run was kind of weird because he's stuck on Earth. Like the Time Lords had forced him to regenerate into the Third Doctor and then stranded him on Earth. They took the knowledge of the TARDIS away from him, and then he's just kind of stuck on Earth for a long time.
Wow.
But then I start Tom Baker's run, who Tom Baker is widely perceived as most people's favorite doctor, the greatest doctor of all time, and he had the longest run. And so I go to his first episode, and from just the start, he's the doctor. You know, there's a meme, you may have seen it. He's like standing in front of the TARDIS, and like the Brigadier stand, I think it was the Brigadier stand there, and Tom Baker is dressed kind of like a Viking. He's got like this helmet with horns on, he's holding a sword, you know, and I think the meme was like when you show up for the job you want, but not the job you have. It was something like that. And that literally happened in the first episode when the doctor's trying to figure out his outfit. Well, in his first story, because back then the stories there was only 30-minute episodes, and they were broken up into four to six parts. And so, you know, one story you would have to watch over the course of 4 weeks. And so I watched that one, and he was the doctor just right off the rip. Him and Sarah Jane. I already knew Sarah Jane from her little
David Tennant
run-ins with Tennant, and so getting to see her in the classic era was really cool. And so I've watched 3 whole seasons of him, and I've started his 4th season, and he has, I think, 7 seasons altogether, is what he's got as the doctor. And each season has like 20-something 30-minute episodes, and so it's a lot to get through. And so I'm watching it right now, and he's fantastic. Tom Baker is just fantastic. He's kooky and he's funny. It's like you can see where Matt Smith pulled things from him. You can see where David Tennant pulled some things from him and stuff like that. It's just, you know, he's great, and he's always offering people jelly babies, and it's just funny. But yeah, Tom Baker, he's really cool, and so I'm enjoying his run as the doctor. But yeah, Peter Capaldi is easily my top choice as the doctor. Listen is one of the greatest episodes of anything ever.
Oh, I love that one.
And
that was a great episode, man.
Just all of that. Series 8 was amazing. Series 9 was amazing. Series 10 was great.
I don't know. He's my favorite doctor as well, man. I think, honestly, my favorite episode of his, sadly enough, one of my favorite episodes, because I have multiple favorite episodes that I can't really think of right now. But Listen's great, for one. I loved Listen. I like the one where he fixed the Dalek from the inside. I forget what that one's called. They shrunk him down to Mike. Yeah, that one's a good one. I like that one. I think one of my favorite ones is Twice Upon a Christmas. I absolutely loved that episode. That was great. It shows, I forget the guy's name, but he was playing the first Doctor in that one. And
Bradley,
he wasn't wanting
David Bradley.
Yeah, he wasn't wanting to regenerate. Capaldi didn't want to regenerate. And by the end, they both realized it's just a natural progression, and it's going to happen to everybody. Time happens to everybody. I thought it was so sad what happened to, oh my God, what's her name? Amy Pond. I did not. I thought it was sad about Bill for sure, but Clara, that was sad. Bill was sad. I think the saddest was probably Amelia Pond, though. I mean, you watch Matt Smith and her, you see Rory gets taken by the Weeping Angels, and then after Rory is taken, she realizes it, and she's like, she's gone. She's already gone. Even though she's still there, she's gone. She has to go be with Rory. And it's like, no. And then it happens, and she leaves a note for him. And every time I watch that episode, I'm not even exaggerating. I cry every time I watch that episode. It hits you. It hits you at home, man. It hits you at home because you grow to love these characters. And want to see them thrive and succeed in whatever escapades they're in or whatever, you know.
Oh yeah.
I too watched it from the very cheesy Christopher Eccleston beginnings, cause it was super cheesy with the mannequins in the first episode.
The Autons.
And then, yeah.
It was really cheesy. I don't think he ever called them the Autons, but in the third, and John Pertwee, in his first story, it's the Autons as well. And just mannequins,
Oh,
they can pop their
wow.
hand down. They got the little guns. So yeah, so that was a returning character with the mannequins.
That's cool. That's
Yep.
awesome. I didn't know that. Like I said, I'm gonna have to go back and watch a lot of those older stuff because I want to watch the original, the first Doctor. Was it William Hartnell? Is that his name?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I want to watch his stuff. I've wanted to watch his stuff for a long time to see how far the show has come from the 1963 show all the way to current day. You know, that's 60 years of Who. I mean, Jesus, you know, that's a big, it's a big amount of time for the show to grow and change and stuff. And I'm really excited about seeing what this newer Doctor is going to be like. You know, I watched the Christmas special, the first one I think I watched. I did get to watch the second one with Tennant. There's like a 3-part special with Tennant or something like that. And after Jodie Whittaker's run, which she had a really solid run, I thought she was really good, and a lot of people I think a lot of people didn't like Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, but I personally didn't mind her. I thought she did a pretty good job, you know.
Oh yeah,
It was
she
just
did a great job with the things that she was given.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought she did a pretty good job, man, and I didn't mind seeing her at all. But Tennant came back and she regenerated into David Tennant, and he had that 3-episode run and ended up splitting in 2, I guess. And
Yep.
now there's this new Doctor, and he has a new companion, and I haven't seen any of that, so I can't wait to see what that's going to be like. You know,
It's
I'm sure
okay.
this first he said it's okay. It's all right.
I'm not sold yet. I'm not sold
Okay.
yet. Yeah, Shudigatwa is a really good actor, but I'm not sure I'm sold on the direction they're headed right now.
I can understand that, man. I can understand that. Right on. Well, man, we're winding down on the episode. And at the end of every episode, I'm not sure how much you listen to podcasts, but there's a very famous podcaster in wrestling called Chris Van Vliet. And he ends his episodes, it's something that I've taken from him, with gratefulness. I kind of change it a little bit because usually he just asks his guest what they're grateful for. At the end of each episode, I like to say 3 things that I'm grateful for and then ask you the same question. So for me, most of the time, it really doesn't change a ton. You know, my support system, my family, my friends, my beautiful fiance, my 2 daughters, and anybody who's really supported me through this journey, wrestling, audio drama making, filmmaking, whatever. You know, anybody who supported me on any journey or venture I've gone on, I'm very grateful for them. For my second one, it is people like you, man. People like you that are willing to come on this show whenever, honestly, you really don't have to come on here. You know, I'm just some random dude that likes talking to people. So it's a very big deal to me to get people like you, awesome guests on like you that are willing to come on the show and spend an hour or so with me and hang out, you know, and just talk. And the third thing is the good Lord above, man, because without him, none of us would really be here. You know what I mean? None of us would be here. None of this stuff would be possible. You know, I wouldn't be able to do anything I'm doing. The air we breathe, the food we eat, you know, the drinks that we have, everything is from the big guy upstairs. So definitely grateful that I have his love and have him in my life. What are 3 things that you're grateful for at this very moment?
Whew, I could go for 6 hours because honestly, this is literally a class that I do here at Adult and Teen Challenge. 3 Monday, Wednesday, Friday. There's a class called Gratitude, and the guys have gratitude journals, and they have to write out 3 things they're grateful for each day and why they're grateful for those things. And that's one of my favorite classes to do here, is because it takes us out of the constant negativity of the world. Because, I mean, you look at Facebook, you look at the news, everything's always negative, 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 negative. And then you take a guy and you have him run through by drug addiction or alcohol addiction or whatever, and then you pull him out of that, and he's in this place, and he's away from his family, and he's dealing with the sins of his past. He's dealing with the struggles, all of it. And all he can think of is negative, and so we take that and we turn that into a positive. So with gratitude, so that's one of my favorite things. But I'm grateful, number one, for my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I mean, without him, initially I never would have been created, obviously, but without his grace and mercy, I never would have come out of the addiction that I was in, and I would have been dead in 2014 or 15, or in prison, or homeless in a ditch. I was strung out on opiates, and it was real bad. I'd love to, if at one point you wanted to have an addiction talk one day, I'll come back. I'll talk about that the whole time. But
Definitely.
So yeah, so him, number one, he saved me, and he gave me, my fam. I'm looking at this wall behind the camera, and I've got my wife and my sons and my daughter and all of that. So yeah, and they would be number two. My wife and my children are my world. I mean, when I leave this place and I get to turn back into husband and father, spending time with them is just the best. And so they come in right there because God, God above. And number three would just be all of the nerd things that I get to enjoy. I'm sitting in an office ridiculously surrounded by Batman action figures and Doctor Who paraphernalia and Battlestar Galactica and Stargate figures over on that wall. There's a giant Batmobile. I've got Stargate SG-1, the complete series on DVD, sitting underneath this camera because I was watching it on my TV. I've usually got it playing in my office or something like that because Stargate is number one, top notch, top of the heap. It's over Doctor Who, it's over Battlestar Galactica, it's over wrestling. That's Stargate. That's my stuff.
I've never watched Stargate, man.
Ooh, it'll change your life, brother. But, nerd stuff, because, we just, me and you, we just got to sit here and talk for an hour about things that we enjoy, and that's just cool. We're not arguing, we're not doing whatever. We're just talking about the things that we enjoy, things that had an impact on our life. Yeah, it's, little green men and little things that just, yeah, it's stuff that does. You talked about audio dramas. I listen to Audible all the time because I've got a 35-minute drive to work and home from work. And so I listen to audiobooks. My Audible library is huge. And I've got Spotify Premium, which now has audiobooks. And if you have Spotify Premium, a lot of audiobooks are included in that. And so I've literally listened to like 6 Doctor Who audiobooks in a row for free.
Oh, wow.
Because they're just included with my plan. Like I'm listening to one that's a Peter Capaldi story called The Ice Kings right now. I'm in the middle of it. And I just finished a different one that had Vastra and Strax and Jenny and the Doctor and Clara, and they're all doing stuff. And it was actually narrated by the actor who plays Strax, and that was just included with Spotify Premium. And so, but I just love being able to embrace my, my nerdiness and just enjoy it. I'm getting to share it with my kids as well. Like my wife has watched Stargate with me. My wife has watched Doctor Who with me and Battlestar Galactica and things like that. She won't really watch wrestling with me, but I get it. There's a limit to everything, all right? But getting to share that and getting to do it. So yeah, Jesus, my family, and nerd stuff, because that's just great. I love it.
Yes, sir.
And I'm gonna fully add in a number 4, which is tied with number 3, my work. But that ranks up with Jesus because I'm literally here because he put me here. I get to share Jesus with these guys every day, and it's the greatest experience of my life. We've been talking for a week about father wounds, and I'm seeing grown men cry and begin to heal from things, and it's just the greatest, like the greatest. So yeah.
Yeah, man.
That's it.
Right on, man. Right on. Wonderful things, man. Wonderful things, dude. Definitely things worth being grateful for. Well, I appreciate the hell out of you coming on here, man. I really do. It means a lot to me that you come on here and just hang out and chat it up with me for almost an hour and 15 minutes, man. Yeah, it means a lot. You know what I mean? We'll have to get you back on here to talk about your story and talk about addiction, like you said, because, you know, you never know what somebody's struggling with, and a lot of people are too afraid to talk about if they're struggling with something. And who knows, someone may listen to it and hear that episode and may help them out, you know? So, again, man, I appreciate you coming on here, man, but I'm going to let you get back to doing what you're doing. We're filming this on a Wednesday. I know you got church tonight, so I'm going to let you go and get into that. Get ready for that, buddy.
All right, I'll see you later.
All right, man. Have a good rest of your evening.
You too.
The guy's an awesome dude. The guy is an awesome dude. That's one thing I can say. He's a real laid-back guy, and I'm definitely going to try to get him back on it in the future so we could talk a little bit about his path to redemption from addiction, as well as all kinds of other things. You know, getting into all kinds of other things that I don't know about, Stargate, and anything else in nerd culture that we decide to get into. Cleric, thank you so much for coming on, man. It has been an awesome episode. But stay tuned, because tomorrow we have a guy who is very dangerous, another very dangerous guest coming on the show. A guy that goes by the name Caleb McCauley, an MMA fighter that fights for all kinds of promotions here in Arkansas. We're going to talk to him. It's going to be a great conversation, guys. So, this episode is done, but never forget to always listen when Adam talks. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll be talking to you very, very soon.